I adjusted my $20 thrift store blazer and took my usual seat at the back of the Harrison Financial Group's weekly staff meeting. As always, my cousin Peter barely acknowledged my presence, too busy adjusting his Rolex and bragging about his latest deal. Another billion-dollar merger, he announced to the admiring junior analysts. That makes 3 this year. Not bad for someone who just turned 35. I hid my smile behind my coffee cup. If only they knew that their small-time consultant had orchestrated those deals from the shadows, using Peter's ego against him every step of the way. I'm Olivia Harrison, though most people at the firm know me as Liv Parker, the quiet consultant who handles minor accounts from a cramped cubicle on the 14th floor. What they don't know is that I'm also Elizabeth Stone, the reclusive CEO of Stone Global Investments, one of the most powerful investment firms in the world. Liv. Peter's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Those quarterly reports better be on my desk by noon, and try to make them comprehensible this time. I nodded meekly, playing my role perfectly. Yes, Mr. Harrison. 10 years ago, I would have snapped back at him. But that was before I learned the power of being underestimated. The story of how I ended up hiding my success from my own family starts with another meeting, a decade ago, in this same conference room. I was 25, fresh out of my MBA program with honors, eager to prove myself in the family business. Investment strategy isn't about flashy deals, I tried explaining to Uncle Robert, Peter's father and the firm's CEO at the time. It's about identifying undervalued assets, understanding market psychology. Leave the real analysis to people who understand it, Peter interrupted. Why don't you stick to organizing client files? That seems more your speed. Uncle Robert nodded in agreement. Olivia, your father was a dreamer too. Look where that got him. My father, James Harrison, had died when I was 12. He'd been the black sheep of the family, more interested in building something meaningful than chasing quick profits. The official story was that he'd failed at starting his own investment firm. Only I knew the truth. He'd been on the verge of a breakthrough when the car accident took him. That day, watching Peter and Uncle Robert dismiss my ideas just like I dismissed my father's, something shifted inside me. I realized that as long as I carried the Harrison name, I'd never be taken seriously. So I made a decision. That evening, I withdrew my life savings, a modest $50,000 from years of careful saving, and registered a new company, Stone Global Investments. The name was a tribute to my grandmother on my mother's side, Eleanor Stone, who'd always believed in me. For appearances, I kept my junior position at Harrison Financial, but every night in my tiny studio apartment, I built something extraordinary. The first year was brutal. I worked 80-hour weeks, managing Harrison's small accounts during the day and building Stone Global at night. I developed an algorithm for identifying undervalued companies, something my father had been working on before his death. I refined it, modernized it, made it better. My big break came when I spotted a pattern in the Asian markets that everyone else had missed. While Peter was bragging about his latest yacht purchase, I was quietly orchestrating a series of small but strategic investments through Stone Global. Within 6 months, those investments tripled in value. I kept my success hidden, living simply and reinvesting every penny back into the company. Stone Global grew rapidly, but I maintained absolute secrecy about my identity. I hired brilliant people who shared my vision, building a corporate culture focused on intelligence and integrity rather than flashy deals and office politics. Did you hear? Lisa from accounting whispered one morning, stopping by my cubicle. Stone Global just acquired Pacific Tech. They're saying it's the biggest deal of the year. I looked up from my intentionally messy desk, surrounded by empty coffee cups and post-it notes. Really? That's interesting. What Lisa didn't know was that I finalized that deal at 3 a.m. from my home office, a converted walk-in closet in my deliberately modest apartment. The acquisition had added another billion to Stone Global's portfolio. I don't understand why you live like this, Lisa said, gesturing at my shabby blazer. You've been here 10 years. You should at least ask for a raise. I shrugged. I'm comfortable where I am. Comfortable wasn't the word. I was thriving. While Peter and the other executives focused on their public image, I was building something revolutionary. Stone Global wasn't just about making money. We were reshaping entire industries, but always from behind the scenes. The company's success meant I could have bought a mansion or a fleet of luxury cars. Instead, I maintain my simple lifestyle, finding satisfaction in watching my clueless family members quote Elizabeth Stone as their role model. Now that's a woman who understands business, Uncle Robert once said during a board meeting, holding up a Forbes article about Stone Global's latest success. Not like some people who waste time with theoretical strategies. He looked pointedly at me as he said it. I ducked my head to hide my smile, remembering how I'd given that Forbes interview over video call, using subtle makeup and lighting to disguise my features. But maintaining two identities wasn't easy. I had to be careful about every detail. My apartment, while small, had a hidden room filled with secure servers and communication equipment. My sick days at Harrison Financial coincided with Stone Global's board meetings. I even maintained two distinct wardrobes: thrift store finds for Liv Parker, custom-tailored suits for the rare occasions when Elizabeth Stone had to make a public appearance. The double life took its toll. Sometimes I longed to stand up in a Harrison Financial meeting and reveal who I really was, to see the shock on their faces. But I knew the power of patience. I was waiting for the perfect moment. That moment was approaching faster than anyone realized. Last week, Peter had burst into the office, practically glowing with excitement. "We're about to close the biggest deal in company history," he announced. A merger with Anderson Corp, $10 billion. What he didn't know was that Stone Global owned a controlling interest in Anderson Corp. The merger would only go through with Elizabeth Stone's approval. For 10 years, I'd watched Peter take credit for others' work, belittle anyone he saw as beneath him, and manipulate his way up the corporate ladder. I'd built my empire in secret, working twice as hard to prove that success doesn't have to come at the cost of integrity. Now finally, everything was coming full circle. The merger meeting was scheduled for next week. Peter, Uncle Robert, and the entire Harrison Financial Board would be there, eagerly awaiting the arrival of the mysterious Elizabeth Stone. Little did they know that their moment of reckoning would come from the person they'd underestimated the most. I glanced at my watch, almost time for another tedious staff meeting. I gathered my notably disorganized files, straightened my intentionally unfashionable blazer, and practiced my well-worn expression of quiet insecurity. "Parker." Peter's voice boomed across the office. "Where are those reports?" "Right here, Mr. Harrison." I called back meekly, hiding my growing anticipation. One more week. After a decade of building my empire in secret, I was finally ready to step out of the shadows. The look on their faces would be worth every moment of hiding, every condescending comment, every dismissive glance. But first, I had a merger to prepare for, one that would change everything. The morning of the merger meeting, I arrived at work as Liv Parker for the last time. My usual shabby blazer was carefully pressed, my hair intentionally unstyled. No one at Harrison Financial gave me a second glance as I made my way to my cubicle. "Big day," Lisa whispered, stopping by my desk. "Everyone's talking about meeting the mysterious Elizabeth Stone." I nodded, hiding my smile. "I heard she's very particular about deals." Peter was already in full peacock mode, strutting around the office in a new Italian suit. "Elizabeth Stone is going to love what we've put together," he announced to anyone who would listen. "This merger will be the crown jewel of both our companies." If he only knew. At 9 a.m., I made a show of gathering my files. "Mr. Harrison," I called out meekly, "I'm not feeling well. Might need to take the rest of the day off." Peter barely looked up. "Whatever. Just make sure those reports are done first." I headed to the elevator, but instead of going down to the lobby, I went up to the private penthouse suite where I kept my Elizabeth Stone identity hidden. Within 30 minutes, I had transformed. Gone was the shabby blazer, replaced by a perfectly tailored Armani suit. My hair was elegantly styled, my makeup flawless but subtle. The merger meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:55, I watched through the penthouse's one-way glass as the Harrison Financial Board members filed into the main conference room. Peter was practically bouncing with excitement. Uncle Robert kept checking his Rolex. My phone buzzed. A message from my executive assistant at Stone Global. "Cars waiting at the private entrance. Ready when you are." I took a deep breath, thinking of my father. He had always taught me that true success wasn't about crushing others, but about proving your worth through actions rather than words. At exactly 2 p.m., I stepped into the conference room through the private entrance. The effect was immediate. Every head turned, eyes widening at the sight of Elizabeth Stone in the flesh. "Gentlemen, I said smoothly, my voice carrying none of Liv Parker's artificial meekness. Shall we begin? Peter jumped up, hand extended. Miss Stone. I'm Peter Harrison. We spoke on the phone about the Anderson Corp merger. I finished, ignoring his outstretched hand. Yes, I'm well aware of your enthusiastic pursuit of this deal. Uncle Robert leaned forward. We've prepared a comprehensive presentation demonstrating the synergies between our companies. I sat down at the head of the table, opening a sleek leather portfolio. That won't be necessary. I've already reviewed everything. In fact, I've been reviewing Harrison Financial's operations for quite some time. Something in my tone made Peter's smile falter slightly. Your company's approach to business is, I paused deliberately, interesting. Taking credit for others' work, manipulating market positions, belittling talented people because they don't fit your narrow view of success. The room grew very quiet. I don't understand, Peter said, his confidence cracking. We've always operated with the highest standards. Really? I pulled out a file. Like when you claimed credit for the Asian market strategy that was actually developed by a junior analyst? Or when you push up talented employees because they threaten your position? Uncle Robert's face had grown pale. Miss Stone, I assure you, don't. I held up my hand. Save your assurances for someone who hasn't watched your operation from the inside for the past decade. Confusion crossed their faces. Then slowly, terribly, recognition began to dawn in Uncle Robert's eyes. No, he whispered. It can't be. I smiled, reaching up to remove the contact lenses that had slightly altered my eye color. Hello, Uncle Robert. Peter. Surprised to see your small-time consultant on this side of the table. Peter's face went from red to white to red again. Olivia. But, you can't be. Elizabeth Stone. The CEO of the company you've been desperately trying to impress. I leaned back in my chair. Have been for 10 years, while you were all too busy looking down your noses at Liv Parker to notice what I was building. The board members were exchanging stunned glances, some looked horrified, others oddly impressed. This is impossible, Peter sputtered. You're nothing but a... Careful. I cut him off. You're about to insult the person who controls the fate of your $10 billion merger. That shut him up. I opened another file. Let's talk about what's really going to happen here. Stone Global isn't going to approve this merger, at least not as it stands. You can't do this. Uncle Robert finally found his voice. The shareholders will be very interested to learn how Harrison Financial has been operating, I finished. Unless, of course, we can reach a different arrangement. For the next hour, I laid out my terms. Harrison Financial would undergo a complete restructuring. Peter and Uncle Robert would step down from their executive positions. The company would implement new policies focusing on merit rather than connections. You've been planning this for years, Uncle Robert said quietly. No, I corrected him. I've been building something meaningful for years. This is just the natural conclusion. As they filed out of the conference room, thoroughly defeated, Peter paused at the door. Why did you hide for so long? Why work here as her? I thought about all the lessons I'd learned watching from the shadows. Because sometimes the best way to understand a broken system is to experience it from the bottom. Everything I built at Stone Global came from watching how not to run a company. The news broke the next morning. The business world was shocked to discover that the reclusive Elizabeth Stone was actually Olivia Harrison, and that Stone Global had engineered a complete takeover of Harrison Financial. Our stock price soared. Apparently, the market loved the idea of a self-made billionaire who had built her empire while working undercover in her own family's company. I kept my old cubicle's nameplate as a reminder. It sits on my desk in the CEO's office, now relocated to the top floor of what used to be Harrison Financial's building. Lisa stopped by last week, still processing the revelation. All those times I told you to ask for a raise. I laughed. Consider yourself promoted. I need people who saw value in Liv Parker, not just Elizabeth Stone. Peter and Uncle Robert both retired to spend time with family. I hear Peter's writing a book about learning humility. I doubt it'll be very accurate, but at least he's finally doing his own work. As for me, I finally bought myself a new blazer, but I keep the old one hanging in my office as a reminder that success isn't about appearances or titles. It's about what you build when no one's watching. The company's doing better than ever. Turns out, when you promote people based on talent rather than last names, amazing things happen. We've launched a mentorship program for overlooked employees, giving them the chances I never got. Sometimes, walking through the office late at night, I think about my father. He believed in building something meaningful, something that would last. I think he'd be proud to know that his daughter did exactly that, even if she had to do it in secret. Last month, a young analyst made a brilliant presentation about market inefficiencies. Peter would have dismissed her immediately. Wrong family, wrong background, wrong everything. Instead, she's now leading our newest division. "You saw something in me that others missed," she said when I gave her the promotion. "No," I corrected her. "I saw you." Sometimes that's all people need, someone who actually looks past the surface. The merger? We eventually approved a modified version that protected jobs and prioritized innovation over quick profits. The business papers called it a masterclass in strategic thinking. I called it justice. My father's old desk now sits in my office, restored and proudly displayed. On it, I keep 2 nameplates side by side: Elizabeth Stone, CEO, and Liv Parker, consultant. They're both me after all. Just like success has many faces, often hidden from those too proud to look closely. When people ask me if I regret spending 10 years in hiding, I think about everything I learned. Every dismissive comment taught me how to treat employees better. Every stolen credit showed me the importance of recognizing talent. Every moment of underestimation became fuel for building something greater. So no, I don't regret it. Sometimes the best empires are built in secret by the people everyone else is too blind to see. Besides, the look on Peter's face was worth every minute.